Hi everybody, just give me a second here. This is my first time doing a live. I'm just a little bit nervous, but I think that's normal. Okay, so I just want to say welcome to my live and thanks for being here with me. You can always watch this video later when it's done. So I wanted to do this live because I have a Instagram and a Facebook, and I have a YouTube TenderLittleTree page, and I just wanted to build a bridge between me and everyone who's purchased my book or who has questions and still doesn't know much about it. So I really just wanted to give you this time to get to know me, ask any questions that you have, and just kind of bridge that gap. So I'll start with a little bit about myself. So my name is Tamara North, as you know, and this is my book, 101 Ideas for Developing a Confident and Skilled Child. So basically, I'll just rewind a little bit how I got to my book, how I created it, what was everything that happened that built that process. So I'm Canadian. I was born Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, Canada. And then at the age of 3, my family and I moved to the Caribbean, and we lived in Haiti till I was 15 years of age. So I know a little bit about overseas and living in another country, and it's different than Canada. There's like a different class system. There's a lower, a middle, and a high class. So you really see rich and poor. So I've experienced all of that. I've experienced different cultures, different mindset, and then the Canadian Saskatchewan culture. So I changed schools a lot. I probably changed schools about 7 times. I really struggled in school. So when I when I graduated, my mother, Adeline North, decided she wanted to open up a Montessori school. I didn't know anything about Montessori, so I started reading some of the philosophy, and I really loved the way that Marie Montessori saw the child, the development of the child, and she used a lot of observation, and she discovered many things about the young child, which absolutely blew my mind. It was a different way of looking, and I'd never seen those concepts before. So that really intrigued me, and we actually started working together, and we ran a Montessori school together for probably 20 years now. So that was kind of my first introduction, and we wanted to create a typical Montessori school. So usually you enroll students, and those students are with you for many, many, many years. But what happened was we kept getting this revolving door of students, and that really, really challenged us as Montessori educators and daycare workers. So there's a little bit of that. Hey, Edward. So anyways, so yes. Where was I? Okay, so I was a Montessori teacher before I became a mother. And when I became a mother, in typical Montessori schools, you start the children with what we call practical life learning materials. So this is just everyday activities. Usually the child is age 3 and up. So they learn simple things, how to care for a little animal, how to water plants, how to sweep, how to wash your own dish, just everyday activities. And so she created the practical life, and then the sensorial materials, and then the math and the language. I'm not going to get too much into it, but so the practical life is the first materials that the children are introduced to in the Montessori environment. So when I had my kids, I became a stay-at-home mom, and I really was struggling, thinking, what can I give my children, because they're not 3 yet, and they were very little, and they were different. I have 2 sons, and they were very, very different. I would buy them toys. I have nothing against toys, but I would buy them toys, and they just were not interested. It would just be parked. And as an educator and as a mom, this really challenged me. I was just, what can I do? What can I give my sons that would help in their development? So what I did is I practiced what Marie Montessori did, which was to observe the child. So that's what I did. I would watch Shay, my eldest, and I would just observe the things that he was interested in. And what I discovered actually is what helped me to create the book that I created. I noticed he was like a little scientist. He loved figuring out how things work, how you fit something into something else. He was really interested in machines like computers. Thanks, Edward. Actually, his grandmother, my mom, she's like a super gadget person. So perfect grandma for my son. So she would buy blenders and juicers, computers. So Shay was just in heaven, trying to figure out all these machines. So that's when I used my Montessori training and my Montessori background, and then the challenges of a mother and a teacher to create learning materials that would really stimulate my son's minds, would challenge them, would capture their focus. So, and it just started coming like an ocean, the ideas. And then I would try it out with my kids, and whatever they didn't like, I would just get rid of. And whatever materials they really enjoyed, then I would keep. And as they got a little bit older, I started working again in the Montessori school, and again with that revolving door of kids. I brought my ideas and my learning materials into our program, and we noticed that the kids just absolutely loved working with these learning materials. And so then I created the book, and I just thought, why don't I share it with parents? They can do it at home. Educators, you could be in a daycare worker. It could be in your school. It could also be for special needs, because my youngest, Alan, was diagnosed as being in the autism spectrum, minor, so he's more Asperger, and he's really overcome himself quite a bit. So these materials can be for special needs as well. I have worked with special needs with my son and a little girl who has cerebral palsy. So this can be for grandparents. I mean, if you're thinking, what can I provide in my environment for my granddaughter, my grandson, or my children? What could help in their development? Well, these materials, it's magical. There's just something really magical. And I'll go more into it. And if you have questions, please ask them. I'm here to answer anything that you're curious about. So I'll start with probably the simplest material you can make. It's straight from your home, and you're going to be sort of like, are you kidding me? So here it is. It's very simple, but this can be a learning material. It's very simple. It's got toothpicks. It's got a little hole here if you turn the dial. Yeah, it's got a couple of small little holes. You guys have seen this. So this can be put in a container like this, or a little tray, and you can put it right on the shelf. Make sure your child has a little shelf of their own so that all their learning materials can be on there and they can access it anytime. So basically, what would be so interesting for a child? Well, I mean, we look at this and we go, okay, that's just toothpicks with a couple holes, big deal. But for the young child, and from observing Shay and Aylin, like, they loved how things would fit or how you piece things together. It really, really stimulates them. And when they're little, 10 months, a year to 2 years, it takes an immense amount of focus, okay, to open this lid, to take these little toothpicks out, like so, and to actually slide them in very, very carefully. I've seen children work with this for half an hour, an hour. It's amazing. And they go into the zone. They just get transfixed into this zone of just sliding it in, opening it, doing it again. Why are they doing that? They're actually perfecting a skill. Marie Montessori mentioned about how the child opens the cupboard, closes it, opens it, closes it, like the little baby, right? They open and close, and it's annoying for you. But what are they doing? They're perfecting a skill. What skills are they developing? Focus, concentration. They're observing. They're noticing the little details in things. Why is that so important? Well, when you go into higher learning, such as math and reading, very complex concepts, you need those foundation of skills. You need to be able to focus for long periods of time. You need to be able to concentrate. You need to be able to notice those little details. So the practical life, and then the materials I expanded on, does that. And I realized in my teaching and as a mother how important the practical life materials were. I realized that. But I wanted to create materials that were even for younger children, and then I wanted to create even more. And another thing is, Marie Montessori talked about adapting to the culture. So whatever's in the culture, the child should be introduced to it. So in most Montessori schools, they have the set practical life materials. Like, they've been using them for many, many years, and that's the set. And what I did is things that are in our environment nowadays, I created learning materials with them. So like CDs and stereos and, toothpick holders. I just sort of broadened that spectrum, but it's based on the Montessori principles. All right, so we're on a roll here. I've got something else that could be in your home that you could easily make into a learning material. So I'm a sucker for chocolate. I love chocolate. I see it. I melt. So it's not surprising to see one of these. What's so great about this? Well, there's these little indentations, these little holes. This can create a wonderful, wonderful learning material. It's really that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. So you just need a tray, like so, and you just place there, Now, like I said, kids really love little objects and things that really grab their attention. And one of those things is balls. So I went to the dollar store and I got a couple of these balls. I mean, look at that. I mean, they're going to be staring at this and going, how are those little balls like just floating like that? I remember as a child thinking that with marbles. So you just put a couple like this. Yeah, and I really like these ones, these little sparkles inside. Yeah. And if the child's really, really young, let's say 1 or 2, they can just use their hands. So they could just use their hand to place the ball in these little holes right here. Okay. And as they get older, maybe 2.5 or 3, you can then introduce tongs to them. So you show them how to use them like this. And so this is very sophisticated. I mean, you basically have to know how to handle the tongs, grab the ball, place it in, and let go. That doesn't seem like a big deal to us, but for a very young child, this is a very, very sophisticated learning material for them. And they could do this, I'm not kidding you, like I said, half an hour. I've seen a child work on this for an hour. They're completely and totally focused on the task itself. It's very simple. I used a chocolate container, a couple balls from the dollar store, and your children will love working with this material. I kid you not. So again, you just place it on the shelf. I'm sorry, I can't really show you the shelf because I'm afraid my phone's gonna fall. But yeah, so you place it on the shelf for the child and they can use it anytime they want. Here's the other material, like that. Okay. So I've got another one. Now, some of my Filipino friends and Haitian friends might find this kind of funny. But growing up in Haiti, I remember going, you're in school and you're like, you gotta go sharpen your pencil. Okay. It was one of these. Now, why would I choose this as a learning material? Well, again, like Shay, he really loved how things work. To this day, he's a computer genius. He works really well with computers. It's amazing what he knows. But anyways, as a young child, he loved seeing how things work. And I would just be so fascinated watching him because really, like Marie Montessori, my children taught me what interested them. They taught me. And the way that they taught me was just me taking the time to be silent, to watch them, and to observe them. And it's because of my wonderful sons that I created this amazing book that can help and can be a resource to so many parents and educators. So anyways, and because of my sons, I understand how children become fascinated in things, and I instinctively know that this would capture the attention of a young child. I mean, you turn this, you can see right through it. It's almost like a gear, right? And you would have a tray with a couple pencils, and of course you're going to demonstrate this to them, and they get to sharpen. I can't really do it properly because, Oh wait, and I remember this being in school. I would be fascinated seeing, the little pencil crayon shavings going down. I don't know, as a child I found that very fascinating. So I know this would capture a child's attention. It's got a little lever here that could lock onto a table or something like that. Yeah, so kids, they would just love doing this. Now this is a very sophisticated material because the child has to put the object in sharpen it, take it out, and then lastly, they would take this piece out. I'm not going to do it because I'm going to drop shavings everywhere. But, oh wait, I can. Okay, so they have to take this piece out and then throw the shavings into the garbage. So what skills are they learning? Oh boy. Okay, I got it. They're paying attention to the detail of, oh, my pencil is not sharpened. I need to continue. So they're noticing that detail to start and finish a task. They're noticing the shavings going down, and they're going to build a realization of, oh, this is filling up. I need to put it in the garbage. So they have that sense of responsibility for their environment. They're becoming aware of, you know, if something's out of place, they need to fix it. I mean, there's a whole other conversation about that. I'm not going to go too much into it, but those are many, many, many steps that they're becoming aware of just by using this material. That's it. It's that simple. So yeah, you would take a tray and just lay a couple pencils with the pencil sharpener on a tray and then put it on their shelf. I'm kind of running a little low on trays, so sorry. Yes, and this will surprise you, but this is actually another learning material that's so simple that you would just think, what? Like, really? Children will be fascinated with this? Okay, it's really, really simple. Just 1 second. Okay. Here it is. I know what you're thinking. It's like, what? Really? You know what? Shay absolutely loved the Culligan, I don't know, what, water dispensers, is that what they're called? He loved it. He just loved lifting the nozzle, putting the cup, filling his water, and drinking it. There's something about that process he really, really found fascinating. So, you could have this somewhere in the kitchen in your home that's very accessible to your child. You get them their own cup, okay, and you make sure that there's water, and they will learn to get their own cup of water. What is so fascinating about that? They learn to turn the nozzle. They start to become aware of how much water is building up in their cup. With some of our new students, I mean, they fill the water up to overflow, and we're like, no, you know, you fill it up not so high. So when our students are with us for up to a couple months, then they start to build this awareness, and they're not filling their cups up to the brim and it's overflowing. They start to build this awareness, and awareness about their environment, and they start to take responsibility. Like, oh, I should only fill my cup up to this amount. And they love the process, just being able to lift or turn the nozzle. They're completely and totally engaged and fascinated by it. And Shay, I actually bought him his own little miniature Culligan stand. It was so cute. And I don't know why. I couldn't get one in any other color except pink, but whatever. So it's as simple as something as that. You're building independence in the child and awareness. They're learning about their environment. They're becoming so in tune with it. And that's what you want. You want them to connect and build that awareness. So simple, hey? But I challenge you. I challenge you to create some of these learning materials and get a little shelf and watch your child and see them, how they're like naturally going there and how fascinated they are. I challenge you. And let me know how it goes. Okay? So, okay, I have this other material. This other material is for an older child. So this material here is a typical Montessori practical life learning material. Usually the child is 3 and up, so they built a lot of skills prior. It requires a lot of self-discipline. So this is it. I have. You usually would start with maybe just 2 jars, but our kids have been with us here at the school for a year, so I put 3. So I've got sort of like a little, what would you call that? A little teacup? No. I'm sorry, it's not coming to me. This is a little jar with corn in it. Okay, and then I have just a simple container here. Okay, so basically the child pours like this and like this. So you would start with just two, and then as the child builds more skills, you can make it more like this, like 3. So they can pour into here and then pour it out. I like this one because it's got a really big hole. It's small and it's pottery. It's very important to introduce kids to natural things in their environment. So this is something that in an adult's environment it would be present. So it's good for them to have access to it. They can also use a spoon to scoop like so and then pour. So what is the big deal about this learning material? I mean, you're looking at it, you're like, okay, they're pouring. Like, you know what? Well, they're building a lot of skills just for that material. I mean, when they're pouring, some of the little pieces of corn will fall out. And it'll fall out on the tray or on their rug. And like our beginning students, they don't notice that. But with time, like I said, when they work with these learning materials, they build an awareness. And when they start to see that little corn fall out on the tray and didn't go in the jar, they start to pour more carefully, or they make sure to put it back in one of the jars. So they build an awareness of cleanliness. Everything has a place. They like that sense of order. They build this awareness that wasn't there before. And that's very important, as I said before, for higher learning, such as math and a language. You need those skills in place. Okay. Again, they're touching objects that are related to their environment that they see in their home, and they're able to have access to it. It's their material, and they get to access it from their tray. But this, again, would be for an older child, like 3 and up. This is a typical Montessori practical life learning material. Thanks, Sasha. Yeah, they are really great ideas, and I have plenty more. So I was kind of hoping you guys would have some questions. Doesn't seem like anyone is. You can always ask questions, I guess, after. I have an Instagram, TenderLittleTree. I also have a Facebook, TenderLittleTree, and I'm also on YouTube, TenderLittleTree. And I created the YouTube because I really wanted to be of any help that I could in your journey with my book, so that if things weren't very clear, I show you in my YouTube channel, how do I find these objects? in dollar stores. I go to dollar stores a lot. I go to Value Village a lot. I just find things in my home. So I have videos on how do I find these objects, how do I put them together, how do I create a learning material. I also break concepts from my book. Like there's the, oh, just one second. What age is best to start? You know what? I started with Shay at 10 months. That's when I started. And I'm glad you brought this question up because I have a chapter in my book that talks about really know your child's character. So I had two totally different kids. So Shay, my eldest, very meticulous, very careful. He didn't like to get his hands dirty. If there was some stairs, he would walk close and then walk back and walk close and walk back. Very careful. And I just knew that I could trust him with some very sophisticated objects. Like he would help me juice in the morning with the juicer. He knew how to use my mom's humidifier. He understood the buttons. He would help me do the laundry. I just knew that I could trust him, that he wouldn't just, he was very interested and he really wanted to know exactly how each button worked and so on. So really, really knowing your child. Now, Aylin, my youngest, was the complete opposite. I mean, if there was dirt and rocks around, I mean, it was going in, if he could. If there was stairs, he would just lunge. So with Aylin, I would wait till he was a little bit older to use smaller objects because I knew he could potentially, pop it in his mouth. So I used a lot of large objects with him early on, and then once I sensed that he was more mature and he had more of an awareness, I would introduce smaller objects. So I just wanted to bring that up. Sasha asks, and how often should you change activities? I'm really glad you brought that up. I have a system, and I talk about it in my book. I have hampers, and in these hampers I have about 10 or more activities of learning materials, and they're labeled for each month. And for our Montessori program, I rotate them. So there's a bin for January, there's a bin for February, and then I just rotate them. So usually I leave the activities for about a month on the shelf. And then I'll introduce another set of activities the other month. So the child, it's basically a lot of learning materials are teaching some similar concepts, but to the child it just looks new. But it's teaching a lot of similar skills. So that's what I do. That seems to work very well for me. So yeah, you could just each month just clear out the shelf and then introduce another set of materials. Now, if you go to my YouTube channel, I do show you how you show the child how to work with this material. You're basically going to sit with your child and you're going to show them first, without using any words, just your hands, how to pick up and place the balls, okay, with your hand if they're really young, or with the tongs if they're a little bit older and more advanced. Because sometimes a 2.5-year-old could be very advanced. They could be in a 3 or 4 year age range in terms of advancement. So you really know your child. You'll start observe them, and you'll kind of know. You'll start to kind of know. Okay, I think they're ready for this, or I think they're ready for this learning activity. Yeah, so if you go to my YouTube channel, I show you how you sit with the child, how you demonstrate. It's very easy, it's very simple. So your hands and your body language is speaking rather than your voice, because you want them to notice those placements of your hand so that they're watching and they're taking it in like a sponge, so that when you give the activity to them, they know exactly how to use it. You're welcome, Sasha. I'm glad that was helpful. If you have any more questions, please ask away. The other thing I really wanted to bring up, I wrote it down here, just give me a second. Oh yeah, okay. So these learning materials, I wanted to differentiate between playing and building a specific skill. So I'm going to use the example of if a child is learning to be a ballerina or to do karate. So when the child comes to the class, they're shown specific movements that they have to practice. And when they practice those specific movements, then they are creating themselves to be an expert in the martial arts, or to be a ballerina. So when the child is working with the learning materials, it's important that they do it in the way that you have demonstrated it to them. So they're using it specifically in that way. Just like how the teacher with the martial arts are showing these specific movements, they can't just do just any sort of movements that they want. They're learning a specific skill. So I just wanted to emphasize that. So that's why when you're demonstrating to the child, they're really watching you and they're really learning how is it that I use this object. So I just kind of really wanted to emphasize that point. Yeah. Okay. So I kind of hope that kind of answers people's, maybe if they had questions about that in their minds, like what is so great about these learning materials? What is it that it does for the child's development? I really hope that I kind of explained that point and made it really simple and not complicated. But I've just had this amazing journey as a mom, as a Montessori teacher. I mean, just watching the kids, observing them. They were the ones that taught me. And they kept telling me how much they love these learning materials. And it really blew my mind because it's very simple, very simple. And I really noticed how it transformed the child. I noticed some kids would be really hyper in the beginning when they were first enrolled, or they had difficulties concentrating or focusing on a task or being aware of their environment. And slowly, like Maria Montessori says, they're like a broken cup and there's these little pieces. And these pieces come together and create the child to be whole. And I'm telling you, it's one of the most beautiful things to witness. You see the child is calm and happy and they're engaged, and you'll hear them say things like, Mom, that doesn't go there, or Mom, can I help you in the kitchen? They just start to notice everything around them in their environment. It's just one of the most magical moments. And like I said, my kids taught me what the materials that they enjoyed from my books, everything that they enjoyed I have in here, and my students. And I wanted to create this book so that it would be a resource for teachers and parents and educators and grandparents and even special needs. I felt like I needed to share it, and I'm just so excited to hear about your journeys with it, how it's helping you, what your thoughts are, and in any other way that I can help in your journey to make things clear and simple. So, because that's what I noticed. It wasn't just the children that transformed, I transformed as well. As a mom and as a teacher, it's one of the most amazing journeys I've ever been on. And I know you as a parent, you as an educator, even a grandparent or special needs helper, you will transform as well. Just seeing the changes that you see in the child working with these learning materials. So, yes, I think I'm gonna leave it at that unless anybody has any other questions. If you would like me to do another live, if you would like me to introduce more ideas, more learning materials, please let me know. You can contact me on any of my social medias. And yeah, so I want to thank you all for being here. I hope this video was helpful. This is my first live, so I was a little bit nervous, but thanks for being here. And you can always watch this video after the live. So I wish you the best, and if this was really helpful, then I would love to do another live with you. Bye!